Hi, I'm LG Nolas from the Horse Race Advantage Company. Today I'll be talking about the first video in a set of videos that represent the additional information that we're going to provide to our paying members. It's the ranking information, and the ranking information is based upon our handicapping. And in this particular set of series, a series of videos, I'm going to be talking about some of the information that actually will help you understand the information that goes behind the scenes at the racetrack. And so you get a broader understanding of some of the factors that influence the outcome of a particular race. Today I'm going to be talking about the condition book and what it means to a trainer and owner, and how actually a horse actually gets entered into a particular race.
Let's take a look at the condition book. What is a condition book? It is a set of conditions that describe the race eligibility requirements in order for a horse to be entered into a race by either the trainer or the owner. Each active track creates a condition book and a condition book index, and this condition book index is generally published 2 or 3 weeks in advance and is posted on the track's website. Now, the condition book index is generally sorted by age and by gender, the age being 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, and then 3-year-olds and upward, and the gender being the colts first and then followed by the fillies and mares. The condition book index identifies the type of races, for instance, the maiden, the claiming races, the stakes races, the allowance races, and then it identifies the distance, the short race or a long race, and then whether it's a turf race or a dirt race. In addition to that, the dates are identified for each particular race, and that is important because that way the trainer can figure out whether he can enter a particular horse at a particular date, and he can then see if he can get his horse ready and conditioned for that particular date, for that particular track, and for that particular race. Now, stakes races are also identified in the book index, and they are also identified in the condition book. However, there's generally a list of stakes races that are published way in advance of the meet. So who writes these conditions? The track handicapper. So based upon what he has on the track with respect to the type of horses he has available, he will write the conditions for each race so that he can fill his races. He also considers what type of horses he can attract from other tracks, because his job is to fill the races, and based on track condition and purse money available. So when the track condition is such that he can attract more horses from other tracks and other places, the better, because that will increase the purses also. How do his races fit into the road to the roses? So he may actually write a prep race for a particular set of horses, and that will allow him to attract actually more horses to his track. But the track qualification for greatest stakes races are different. They are established long before the races are written, and the track handicapper cannot on his own write the greatest stakes races. He has to actually put those in for approval. He also determines the morning line odds, and so one has to remember that he's a track handicapper. He's just another handicapper, and he's a very good handicapper, but he's not always right, and sometimes he's wrong, and sometimes, it's good to do your own handicapping. Who uses the condition book? The trainers normally use the condition book, and owners will understand the condition book normally take a look at that too and see when their horses could potentially race and what kind of purses there are available. Why do trainers look at the condition book? They look at the condition book in order to determine whether there's a place for him to enter the horses that he has in his barn and that he's training. And this is going to depend upon the horse's physical readiness and the horse's mental readiness and the assessment of the trainer of the horse's physical and mental readiness. Sometimes a horse may be physically ready, but if he's not mentally ready, then he's most likely not going to be in the money. So the trainer's assessment is also based on the horse's propensity for a particular track surface and the distance. And so sometimes a trainer doesn't necessarily know what the horse likes until he actually puts him into a race or several races before he can figure out that a particular horse is more suitable for a particular distance or for a particular track surface. But the trainer's objective is always to find that level where the horse can be most effectively compete and win. So what are the trainer's objectives? He needs to find the right track, the class level, the track surface, and the track distance where he can actually win. The track meaning actually a track could be not just the track condition itself, but also a particular track. Like, for instance, you will find that some trainers will actually ship their horses from the track that they're training at and to another track, and sometimes it's a lesser track or a smaller track. But the horse may be training, say, at Belmont, and he's been shipped to Suffolk Downs because the competition there is a little less, and so therefore he may actually find that there is a better chance for actually winning. We will take a look at the class level, and there's a natural leveling. It's almost like when the water levels, okay? This is where each horse finds its level and where he can effectively compete. And each time that he wins, he's being moved up and in the condition, and it means that he's going to face stronger horses, and his competition is going to get fiercer each time that he moves up in the conditions. The track surface. Now, sometimes you'll find that a horse actually likes dirt, and then he'll, a year later, he may not like the dirt at all, and he switches to the turf. And so these type of things, these changes, the trainer is supposed to figure that part out, and not every trainer can figure that out, and sometimes it's very difficult to figure out. So a horse is also suitable for a particular distance. Some horses can run only short distances and then sprint races, and then other horses can actually run the long races, the route races. All this information is found in the condition book index, and so that's the place where a trainer will look to see where he can enter his horse and actually do racing. So his horse must compete effectively, and his objective is always to win and make money. So once he finds a place where he can actually race, he enters the horse into the race, and so this is where the horses are entered. Now, the entries are normally 3 or 4 days beforehand, and they're not finalized until 1 or 2 days just before the races are actually run. Now, he's always trying to maximize earnings, and the earnings are defined through the purses that a particular race has, and that is identified in a condition book. So both the condition book index and the condition book are used in actually determining where a particular horse is entered. The trainer's objectives and also the owner's objectives are that the trainer manages his horses in order to manage the racing career toward a black type status, and the black type status are the graded race earnings. Okay, so that's the highest, and so each time that a horse wins, the trainer wants to, and the owner would like to move the horse up in the conditions, and the quicker the better. So, but not every horse can actually go up into the racing classes. So let's take a quick look at the condition book for aqueduct. As you can see over here, we have the condition book index, and then we have the condition books themselves. The condition books run approximately for 2 to 3 weeks, and they're posted about 2 to 3 weeks ahead of time. So let's take a look at November 23 index, December 4 through December 4. Okay, here is the condition index. And you can see here that it lists the type of races that are available to 2-year-olds. They're the short races, anywhere up to a mile, normally 7 furlongs, and then long distance, starting at a mile and over. Then following the 2-year-olds, you have the 3-year-olds and the type of races that are available for them, and then the 3-year-olds and upwards. So if we take a look at the 2-year-olds, we see there are quite a few races written for maidens, meaning that they have never won a race. And that makes sense because at 2 years old, they're just starting their career, racing career. And so if you take a look at here, they have maidens 16,000 on November 24th, maiden 25,000 November 30th, and maiden 35,000 restricted to New York breds on December the 4th, and with no indication over here, it means that they are running on the dirt. And over here, maiden 35,000, you find November 25 as a turf race. In addition to that, we find the maiden special weight. Maiden special weight meaning no horse can be claimed here, and they are written for November 24th and December 3rd for a short race. And then for the long distance, it's November 26 for the dirt and November 26 also for the turf. So if we go up the ladder here, we also find there's stakes races restricted to New York breds on December the 4th, and a stakes race open to all type of horses on November 26. So that's how you read your condition index. Let's take a quick look at the 3-year-olds and upwards. These are all colts, by the way. Generally speaking, there are no restrictions, but most of the time these are the 3-year-olds colts. And if we now go on to the type of races that are provided to the 3-year-olds, you find there's a whole lot more type of races. And the reason for that is they have some history behind them, and so after they win, they get moved up in the conditions, and they go to non-win of 2, non-winners of 3, and then they go to stakes races, starter handicap here, and then non-winners of 2, and then stakes races, and then overnight stakes races, and overnight stakes races for New York breds, or restricted to New York breds. So there's a whole lot of different type of classes or levels, and so what you're looking for is a race that a horse is fit and able to actually win, and that's the job of the trainer. He looks to see what race he can his horse fits in, and so he looks for those type of races first, and then he checks and see what kind of dates are available for him. And he always likes to pick his horses for stakes races at a particular date. So that sometimes, there's some other races that he uses as prep races, but in general, in the big races, big stakes races, he likes to peak a horse because the horse never stays at his peak, for a long time. So these are for the colts, and then they're followed by the fillies. So here we see the fillies for 2-year-olds, and you have a similar pattern here. You have the maiden races, and then the maiden special, and then the overnight stakes, and then the stake races. And again, you have races for fillies 3-year-olds, and then fillies and mares 3-year-olds and upwards. a mare being 5 years old. So you like to take a look at this because if your filly is 3 years old, she may be competing against a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old, and of course a 4-year-old and 5-year-old is generally stronger than a 3-year-old. So a trainer will always check to see what the field is going to look like, and the field is going to be looked at through the entries. So we just looked at the condition book index for November 23rd through December the 4th. So let's take a look and see what the condition book itself looks like for that same period. Okay, so here you have the condition. On Wednesday, November 23rd, you have a first race, a claiming race for 7 furlongs, that's the distance, and the purse is $28,000 for 3-year-olds and upward. Since it's not a fillies race, it's assumed to be colts for colts. Non-winners of 2 races since September 23rd. Notice the weight here. The 3-year-olds get 121 pounds. The older ones get 122 pounds. Notice that's only a 1 pound difference, which may be significant in a longer race, but in a 7 furlong it's not going to make a whole lot of difference. Non-winners of 2 races since September 23rd, so this is November 23rd. If you didn't win anything, then you're allowed of 2 races since September 23rd, which is two months ago, then you're allowed another 2 pounds. In other words, you can subtract 2 pounds of the required weight. So 121 minus 2 pounds is 119, and 122 pounds minus 2 pounds is 120. Races where entered for 10,000 or less are not considered. So this is the information, this is the condition, and this is the information that's generally shown on the top of each race in a past performance. So that's what you look at. The entries are normally about 2 days before the actual race, like you see over here. Entries close on Friday, November the 18th. For races for horses that want to be racing on November 23rd, they have to be entered by their trainer by November the 18th. Let's take a quick look here at this particular race here. This is an overnight stakes. It's listed by the track handicapper. And you see here, this is a stakes race. It's the quick card stakes race, and the purse here is $60,000. And I want to go over this really quick. It's a mile and 16 on the turf, and in order to be eligible for this one, you have to be a 3-year-old. Note there's no nomination fee, but there's $1,000 to pass the entry box, and a supplemental nomination fee of $200 may be made at any point prior to entry. In other words, the nomination closed Wednesday, November 16th, but if you're late, then you could, and if you really want to run in this particular race, you can enter another fee of $200. All starters, including supplemental nominees, to receive a $750 rebate. The purse to be divided 60% to the owner of the winner and 20% to the second, 10% to third, 5% to fourth, 3% to fifth, and 2% divided equally among the remaining finishers. And this is fairly common. There may be a little variation, but these are generally the percentages that go to the owner, and a certain percent of those earnings go to the trainer. So this is a condition description here that is very common for all the races that are going to be written by a handicapper at the track.
This concludes the video on the condition book. The condition book identifies the conditions under which horses may actually race, and it is up to the trainer to identify that particular level and spot where his horses can actually win. So this information gives you some insight as to what a trainer has to do or an owner has to do in order to get a horse into onto the track. and it identifies the level, and it identifies the dates that are available to him, and it also identifies the type of tracks and distances. So depending upon the type of horse a particular trainer has, he will start looking for a race where he can actually win, and for a time that he can actually condition his horse to be ready to actually run that particular race. Now, this is the first video in a series of videos that are going to be provided to our paying members. And so the next race in this particular series is the maiden races, which is the first step in the conditioning. I hope you enjoyed this particular one and provided you more inside information, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in our next video.